Welcome. In this lesson, I want to go over what is a DB subnet group and why we create it before we create any RDS instance. Having a solid knowledge about DB subnet group is very critical, not only for MySQL or Aurora, but for any RDS that is available on the AWS. DB subnet group is actually created from the subnets of a VPC. A VPC is a private logical network boundary that Amazon gives us to create all our cloud resources. This is the VPC and everything is within a VPC. Okay, so as you know, AWS is divided into a separate geographical regions across the world, and US East 1 is just one of those regions. Now, each region has multiple physical data centers. They call it availability zones, and these availability zones or AZs are interconnected through high bandwidth internal Amazon-owned dedicated networks. Okay, this is what we're talking about. This is a data center, this is a data center, this is data center, and they are interconnected. Now, this US East 1 has maybe A, B, C, D, E, F, 6 availability zones, but we will be only using 3 AZs for the DB subnets. This is availability zone A. Its name is US East 1. This is the region name, and then A, B, C as a suffix. Now, we create subnets in the availability zones. Okay. Now, one subnet can belong to only one AZ at a time. Then we create our compute resources, databases, application servers, and all those other stuff in these subnets. Okay. Now, we attach routing tables to these subnets, and so that the resources within these subnets can communicate within each other and to the outside world if they need to. Any subnet that wants to communicate with the internet, we can call it a public subnet, and any subnet that doesn't have to go or doesn't have to be exposed from the outside world, it is called a private subnet. We create web servers, they are in the public subnets, and the database and the application servers are created in the private subnets. So, a DB subnet group is a group of VPC subnets, okay, that we define and tell RDS to create our RDS instance within this subnet group, within this DB subnet group. As you know, for the RDS instance, we do not have access or SSH access to the underlying RDS host, but under the hood, what Amazon does is it create a EC2 instance in the subnet group that we provide. Okay, so our RDS instance, even though we will not have access to the hardware, but it will be created within this VPC. Okay, since a multi-AZ DB cluster has one primary and 2 standby instances, so it requires a subnet group spans to 3 different AZs. That is why we picked it 1A, 1B, and 1C. So now let me show you. This is the default VPC on my account I have. Okay, this is the VPC, and the subnets, these are the subnets, and these subnets are spanning across all the availability zones A, B, C, D, E, F, but we only need ABC. So in the ABC, I have created, I just named them so that to make it easy to see them. So DB private 1A, web public 1A. This is the web server on availability zone 1A, and then I have a DB subnet also in this one. The similar in B and C. So these 3. So what we want is, we want to create a DB subnet group that will have 1A, 1B, 1C. In other words, we will have 96.0. We will have, that would be 112, and then from the C it will be right, where is the C? Right there, that will be 128. So let's go into the RDS console. Right on the left hand side, you see subnet groups. This is a default that is already created, but we want to create a new subnet group. Let's call this database private DB subnet group, and I will change it. I will say the description DB subnet group accessible from within VPC only, right? So this is the VPC, and out of this now you can properly tell me we only want A, B, and C, and we do not need other availability zones. A, B, C. We can have many availability zones, but for the sake of this DB subnet group, I'm telling you these are the three distinct that we need. And then from these availability zones, which subnets we want. Some of them are public and some of them are private. So let's say this is the 96, that's what we want. 112, that's we want. And then 128, and that we want. Now, this will be a DB subnet group that will be coming from each of the distinct availability zones, A, B, C, and this will be the range. So any RDS that we will create, if we will have only one DB RDS instance create, it will be either one of these. If we want to have a multi-AZ cluster where each instance will be placed in this here and here to create a high availability cluster. So let me go ahead and say create. Now, when we create a RDS, we can now provide this DB private DB subnet group as our DB subnet group. So now I hope that from this lesson, you understand what is a DB subnet group and why we need that, because RDS under the hood is going to create an EC2 instance, and that EC2 instance is going to be placed within a VPC, and then from within a VPC, we segregate certain subnets only specific to our database resources. I hope that this lesson has been informative for you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.